So let's imagine what the future carbon-neutral, climate-resilient city would look like, right? So people live in neighborhoods where they can walk quickly and safely to work, school and parks. Pedestrians and cyclists could enjoy protected sidewalks and paths lined with trees. With steady foot traffic, local retailers and restaurants could thrive. A few vehicles on the streets will be electric, quiet, pollution-free. With much cleaner air in cities, almost asthma, allergies, and other diseases would be far less common. It would be more pleasant inside homes and commercial buildings, with increased natural lighting, good ventilation, and combined with rooftop solar panels and green roofs and efficient heating. Actually, this would reduce our costs. So why is it so difficult to build a carbon-neutral, climate-resilient city? Our cities are changing in a dramatic pace, whether this is from technological innovations that change the nature of our work, whether these are demographic changes. Let's not forget aging population, especially in Europe, but also migration flows, urbanization, especially in regions such as Africa and Asia. And on top of all of that, we have the immediate action that is necessary to tackle climate crisis. Business as usual models of development are not enough to address these challenges. And they are not enough because these models are unable to deliver even currently decent standards of living. Let's not forget that there is almost 1 billion urban residents living in slums without access to decent housing, drinking water, or sanitation. So when we are talking about immediate action to address climate change, ambitious climate mitigation is not enough. It's not enough to secure prosperity and safety. Investments in urban resilience are necessary in order to cope with inevitable, that is climate change. We can already see cities suffering from heat waves. We saw Paris, but Melbourne in Australia, Rome in Italy, cities that run out of water or cities that have more water than they would like to. This has been the new normal. We see it every year. And these impacts fall disproportionately more at the poor and vulnerable. These exacerbate more existing chronic stresses in cities. Urban mitigation needs to go hand in hand with urban adaptation. But every transition has its trade-offs. And this one will require profound social and cultural changes. Citizens need to be confident that they will be protected from any negative impacts and that they will truly benefit from these new forms of living, consuming, traveling, producing. Building public support for such a transformation is difficult, and is difficult especially with such profound deprivation and inequality. Governments need to put equity and inclusion at the top of the agenda. So we're talking, on the one hand, urban mitigation along with urban adaptation, and we're also talking about the climate change and the climate response along with equity and inclusiveness. A carefully managed transition to a zero-carbon, climate-resilient city could actually help secure economic prosperity and improve life. We will have this ideal scenario that I mentioned earlier on. But in order to realize the potential of cities, this demands bold action. It demands bold action from all levels of government, from the private sector, the civil society. So far, city governments have shown particular leadership. We have more than 10,000 cities all around the world that have committed to set emission reduction targets. We have cities that develop urban resilience strategies, climate adaptation plans. But this is not enough. And bold action is needed by the national governments that will enable policies and investments to stipulate climate action by the private and civic sectors. So what can we do? How can we plan for a just urban transition? And here are a few indicative recommendations. It's more like food for thought. First of all, direct more R&D budgets into support climate priorities from cities. Establish regulatory sandboxes for low-carbon innovation in cities. Support local governments in establishing a pipeline of climate-safe, bankable projects. Strengthen local capacity to act on climate change. Support community-led upgrading of informal settlements. Develop transition plans for fossil fuel-based workers. Enhance climate resilience education for all, and especially the younger generations. We face three urgent challenges: a global economy that is not meeting the needs of the many, a widening inequality and the resulting loss of faith in institutions, and a climate change that is happening faster and causing more damage than most scientists had predicted a decade ago. These challenges are closely interconnected. It is difficult to sustain an ambitious climate change agenda without addressing inequality. And ever worse climate change impacts will make it even harder to eradicate poverty or reduce inequalities. The battle for the planet will be won or lost in cities. So we need to act. That's a fact. The question is, or what's at stake, is how can we help cities on a pathway to prosperity and resilience rather towards decline and vulnerability? Thank you.